Hi, boys and girls. It's Miss Bissell. We are back today with lesson 6-5. We are continuing our chapter on decimal division. Today, we're going to be dividing by a two-digit whole number. Before we get started, I do want to review a little bit of what we were doing yesterday. So let's talk about if we had an example, if we were dividing 9 by the number 8. All right. We talked yesterday about how important it is to use an estimate so that you can think about, is your answer reasonable, or sometimes to help you place that first digit in your quotient. All right. If we're talking about 9 divided by 8, I can go ahead and tell you that I know 9 divided by 9 is going to give me 1 whole. So if I am dividing 9 by 8, then my answer is going to be very close to 1 whole, but it's going to be greater. So if I were to estimate it, we would have talked about making 9 and 8, and we would have had an estimate of about 1 whole. But again, we know that where 9 is being divided into 8 equal groups, there's going to be a little more than 1 in each group. All right, let's step out to the side and let's do our division. All right. 8 goes into 9 one time. 1 times 8 is 8. When we subtract, we get a 1. All right. Up until now, we might have written this answer as 1 remainder 1. All right. Coming out of 4th grade, that's probably how you would express that quotient. After working with fractions, you guys know that another way we could express the quotient would be that we have 1 and 1's left over. So we would have 1/8, 1 and 1/8 left over. All right, that would be our quotient. All right, in this chapter, we're going to be working with a decimal. So you got it. We are going to have to annex a decimal and a 0 so we can continue with our division, okay? In 5th grade, we stop when we get at least 3 digits behind the decimal point and we round to the nearest hundredth. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and bring down that 0. Now, I annexed that decimal point, so it is going to go up in the quotient behind my 1, which is in the ones place, okay? Now, 8 goes into 10 one time. 1 times 8 is 8. I subtract. You got it. I need to keep going. I need at least 2 digits behind my decimal point here. All right. 8 goes into 22 times. 2 times 8 is 16. All right. This decimal keeps going. All right. I need to annex another 0 and bring it down. All right. 8 divides into 45 times. 5 times 8 is 40, and this decimal terminates right here. And for all intents and purposes, what we're going to do is we're going to round to the nearest hundredth in 5th grade. So this 2 in the hundredths place would become a 3. So we would write this as 1 and 13 hundredths. So there's 3 ways that we could represent that quotient, okay? We could represent it with, we would have one group of 8 with 1 left over. We could represent it as we would have one group of 8 with 1/8 left over, or we would have 1 and 13 hundredths in each group, okay? All right. Now let's move on to our assignment for today. We are going to flip over. I'm going to start on page 327. If you do not have graph paper, you probably want to grab some for today's lesson. Numbers 3 and 4, we're just going to jump right in it. Today, our goal is to be able to divide decimals by 2-digit numbers, okay? Even dividing whole numbers by 2-digit numbers could yield a decimal quotient. So let's start with number 3. What I don't like about the book is that they didn't take the time to do an estimate on this particular problem. So just out to the side somewhere, I'm going to take 306 and 25 hundredths. and I'm going to divide it by 49. I want that quick estimate. It helps me place the first digit in my quotient. 49 rounds to 50, a number very close. Well, 30 is divisible by 5, so 300 would be what 300 is going to be what I use as a number very close to 306. All right, I'm going to cancel out, and I get an estimate of about 6. So I am thinking that I could divide 49 into 306 6 times. All right, so let's see what happens if we do that. 6 times 9 is 54. 6 times 4 is 24 plus the 5, I get 29. All right, I'm going to erase where I carried. When I subtract 294 from 306, we get 12. All right, we have a 2 to bring down, and we do need to check to make sure that our difference here is less than our divisor. If it's the same number as the divisor or greater, that would mean we could have made another group of 49 and we would have had to adjust our quotient, but we're good. All right, when we bring down the 2, we go into division. They have already told us that 49 goes into 122 2 times. And they've actually gone ahead and multiplied the 2 times 49 and given us the 98. So now we just need to subtract. So 98 from 122, if you just count up, I like to do that so I don't have so much mess here. I get 24, and I bring down the 5. All right. Again, I need to divide. 49 goes into 245. I'm going to guess 5 times because 5 times 50 is 250. It may be high. We can adjust it if needed. So 5 times 9 is 45. 5 times 4 is 20 plus 4. There we go. It is 245. When we subtract, we're done. So our estimate and our actual quotient are very close. So I can feel confident that I am doing a good job with this. All right, let's work on number 4. Number 4, we are going to be dividing 14 4/10 by 15. I want to get a quick estimate. All right, you know what? 14 rounds to 15. So I'm going to estimate that my answer is close to 1. All right, this is an overestimate because I rounded this number 14 up. So I know that my answer is actually going to be, the quotient's going to be less than 1. And that makes sense because where they've started us out, they've got us a 0 decimal in the quotient starting out. All right, so let's work on it. I know it's going to be close to 1, so my next number should be, at least we know, 9, 8, 7, somewhere up in that high range. Let's see what happens. 15 goes into 144. Well, I know 10 times 15 is 150, so let's give 9 a try. It's going to be up there. 9 times 5 is 45. All right, 9 times 1 is 9, plus these 4 give me 13. So 135. I'm going to erase any of my scratch work there. All right, 135 up to 144. If I count up, I get 9. All right, I have to annex a 0 here because I need to keep dividing. And I have 15 goes into 90. Well, 15 would go into 90 6 times. 15 times 2 is 30. 30 to 2 more would be 60, and 62 more would be 90. So that would be 6 times. 6 times 15 is 90. And I stop with an estimate of 96 hundredths, which is very close to my estimate of a little bit less than 1. All right, let's move on. Number 5. Again, they did not do the little estimation, so let's go ahead and do it ourselves. I'm just going to pick some scratch area on my paper. 78 2/10 divided by 17, around 17 to 15. A number very close to 78, a whole number very close to 78 that's divisible by 15 is 75. And 15 times 5 is 75. So when we divide 75 by 15, we get an estimate of 5. All right. So that helps us to try to place the first digit in our answer. All right. This right here is ready to go. So 17 goes into 78. We know that 15 would go into 78 5 times. Watch what happens if I use that estimate. 5 times 7 is 35. And 5 times 1 is 5, plus 3 more is 8. And I can't subtract 85 from 78. So we all know that means that my quotient needs to be adjusted one digit down. So let's use the 4. All right, 4 times 7 is 28. 4 times 1 is 4, plus 2, I get 68. When I subtract, I get 10. It's less than 17. I'm in good shape. I bring down the 2. Now I have to figure out how many times 17 goes into 102. 17 goes into 78, or at 17 times 4 was 68. So let's try 5 times. 5 times 7 is 35. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 3 is 8. When we subtract 85 to 102, you know what? It's going to be more than 17. So I have to adjust my quotient up. All right. So I am intentionally kind of monkeying around with those a little bit to show you how you can adjust your quotient. I did forget to pop up my decimal. It's going to be between the 4 and the 6/10. All right. Let's see if this works. 6 times 17. 6 times 7 is 42. 6 times 1, 6, plus the 4 is 10. Perfect. I have 0. That decimal terminates with the answer or the quotient 4 and 6, excuse me, which is relatively close to our estimate of 5. All right, let's try number 6. All right, we've got 232 divided by 40. So I'm going to look at this as a number very close to 232 divisible by 40 would be 240, because I know that 24 is divisible by 4. All right. When I divide, I get an estimate of about 4. Sorry, 6. My bad. 24 divided by 4 is 6. All right. So let's start with our division. I know that 6 would be a good starting point. Also, I noticed they're not putting the decimal in the quotient here. So we go ahead and pop it up straight ahead. We're dividing 40 into the 232. So that tells me my answer is going to have one digit in the ones place, then the decimal. Okay. Don't forget about those little clues. So if I try 6, which is my estimate, 6 times 0 is 0, 6 times 4 is 24, and I cannot subtract. But the thing about using that estimate is it at least gives me an idea of where to start and where to go, meaning that 6 is too large in the quotient, so all I need to do is drop it down to 5. 5 times 4 is 20, so 5 times 40 is going to be 200. I'm going to subtract. 232 minus 200 is 32, and I have a 0 that I need to bring down, and now I'm ready to divide. 40 goes into 320. Well, I know 4 goes into 32 8 times, so 40 goes into 320 8 times, and it gives us 320 when we multiply. So again, our 5 8/10 quotient is very close to our estimate of 6. So a lot of people don't want to be bothered with doing the estimates. They think that it's extra math work, but honestly, it's the first step in your division problem, just because it helps you place that first digit in the quotient, and then it helps you check your answer for reasonableness. All right, the next one looks really, really complicated, but let's just take it one step at a time. We have 304 and 75 hundredths. We're dividing it by 53 to get our estimate. We're going to round the divisor to the nearest 10, and I know that 300 is very close to 304, and it is divisible by 50 because I know that 30 is divisible by 5. So we can do our shortcut here. 30 divided by 5 is 6. So 300 divided by 5 is 6. So we have an estimate close to 6. All right. I'm going to go ahead and tell you that 6 times 53 is going to be greater than 304, okay? So we're going to have to try the 5, adjust that down. 5 times 3 is 15. 5 times 5 is 25 plus 1, and that fits perfectly. All right, we're going to subtract. I just count up from 265 to 304, 265 to 275, 285, 295, up to 4, and I get 39 as what's left over. All right, I need to bring down the 7, and now I need to think about how many times 53 is going to go into 397. I'm going to guess I don't have to guess. They told me 7. All right, they've already got it up there. All right, 7 times 53 is 371. So I'm going to count up 71 to 81 to 91, 20 up to 97 would give me a 26. That's the difference. And I bring down the 5. All right. If you aren't good at counting up and you need to use scratch paper, then you need to do your subtraction very carefully on your scratch paper. All right. When I now divide 53 into 265, I'm going to guess 5 times, and I'm going to use 5 as my guesstimate because I know 5 times 50 is 250. So that's going to be a little bit greater when I multiply it times 53. 5 times 3 is 15. 5 times 5 is 25 plus 1. There it is. 5 times 53 is 265. This decimal terminates. My quotient, 5 and 75/100ths, is very close to my estimate of 6. All right. Number 8, we have 15 and 3/10 to start with. We're going to divide it by 18. We're going to get a quick estimate. 18, I'm going to use the compatible number 15. And I know 15 divided by 15 is going to be 1. So my answer is actually going to be close to 1. I know it's going to be less than 1 because they've started the problem for me and they actually are showing me that there is no digit in the whole number part of the answer. All right, so we're going to start out. We need to divide 18 into 153. All right, my estimate is going to be somewhere close to 9 or 8. Let's start with 9. 9 times 8 is 72. 9 times 1 is 9, plus 7 is 16. I cannot subtract, so that means I need to adjust my quotient. See how quick that goes if you have these basic understandings and if you take the time to do the estimate. All right, 8 times 8 is 64. 8 times 1 is 8, plus 6 more is 14. So 8 times 18 is 144. If you don't like working sideways like I do multiplying, then again, you're going to use your scratch paper and out to the side, you're just going to do 18 times 8 and you're going to get 144. All right. Now, I subtracted 144 from 153, or they did for us, and they gave us a 9 as the difference. Well, I can't I need to annex a 0 and bring that down. And now I need to divide 18 into 90. All right, I'm going to make a guesstimate of about 5 times. I know 5 times 20 is 100. I've got 5 times 18. Let's just see what happens. 5 times 8 is 40. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 4 more. Perfect. So I have a terminating decimal. My answer, 85/100ths, makes sense with my estimate of 1. And I'm ready to work on 9 through 12. You boys and girls should be at the point where you could use your graph paper right now. I would like you to estimate your quotient first for these 4 problems. Then I would like you to do the actual division. So go ahead, pause the video, work these 4 problems on your scratch paper or work 1 or 2 and see how you're doing with this concept. And then we'll come back and look at my work. Number 9, when you estimated, and you could have used a different set of numbers, you could have used compatible numbers, you could have used a different set of rounding numbers, but your estimate should be close to 3. All right, I rounded 27 to 30. I rounded the whole number 91 to 90 because I know 90 is a multiple of 30. So when I divide, I get 3. Over here, this was pretty cut and dry. I didn't have to do any annexing of decimal points or zeros. I got 3 4/10. All right. Number 10, I have 3 9/10 divided by 15. I kept 15 as 15. I didn't round it because I'm pretty good at counting by 15. And just looking at 3.9 as a whole number, 39, I know that 45 is very close to it and is a multiple of 15. So I know 45 divided by 15 is 3. So what that means in terms of patterns and what we did with lesson 6.1 is that I know that 4 5/10 divided by 15 will be 3/10. Okay, so my estimate is somewhere close to 3/10. That helps me with placing my decimal. I know 3 was too big. Here's my work. But let me show you something. When I subtracted and had a 9 here as my remainder, all right, I know that I need to bring down a 0 because I need to keep working on my division until I either have 3 digits behind the whole number, behind the decimal, or until the decimal terminates at that second or first digit behind the decimal point. All right, so you should end up with 26 hundredths, which is relatively close to 3/10, or you could even think of it as 30 hundredths. Number 11, I'm dividing 396, the whole number, by 88. I rounded 88 to 90. 396, I looked at those first 2 digits, and I know that 36 is very close to 39 and is divisible by 9. So 360 is divisible by 90. My estimate's about 4. So when I started with my division, I really just started with that whole number, and I tried 4. 4 times 88 gave me 352. I had 44 when I subtracted. And I did then at that point realize that I have to annex a decimal point and a 0. I brought down the 0. I popped up my decimal point behind my whole number 4, and I continued until I ended. 4 5/10 is relatively close to 4. I feel good that that answer or that quotient is reasonable. Number 12, you guys were dividing 247 5/10 by 50. I left 50/50, a number close to 24 or 247 that's divisible by 50 or by 5 would be 25 or 250, however you want to look at it. 250 divided by 50 tells me my estimate should be close to 5. I divide. I get all the way to dividing, 50 into 247 4 times. The 5 was too big. I did have to go back and readjust my quotient. 4 times 50 was 200. I subtracted with 47 as my difference, brought down the 5. 50 went into 475 9 times. 9 times 50 was 450. Then here's where I had 25 left over. I don't want a remainder or a fraction answer when I'm dividing decimals, so I annexed that 0, brought it down. I divided 50 into 250. It went 5 times. 5 times 50 was 250, and my decimal terminated right here. 4 95 hundredths is relatively close to my estimate of 5, so I feel good about it. So boys and girls, you work today with dividing digits by dividing numbers by 2-digit divisors. Our divisors were whole numbers. We were writing our answers, our quotients, as decimals. Okay, so you're going to have some practice with that today. I hope you do very well with it. If you get confused and need to go back and watch some of this video, please rewind and take it back to where you need it. All right, have a great afternoon, and I will see you later.